recording is up. So let's
Four,
go ahead and press
three,
play.
2, 1.
Okay,
Attackers
so first
incoming.
thing I'm always looking at
Defend
very
objective
start of the
A.
game is team compositions because those will dictate our play style. That'll dictate we're gonna be doing different things, making different decisions based off of all the different team comps on both sides. So on our side, since we're Ana, you say you play Ana mainly. So the big thing that we can do on Ana is just identify who are the best nano targets every single game before the game even starts, right? And that's a really easy way to make it so that we don't necessarily have to be panic nanoing a lot of the time.
Uh-huh.
So obviously, number one target's just going to be going for the nano blade, right?
Right.
That's very common, very easy to go for. You understand that, I'm sure. Probably we and then we want to even identify after the nano blade. We might want to go for one or two, even past that, right? Go for first priority, second priority, third priority, and then this way, if Genji's dead and we feel like we need a nano, then we can nano somebody. If it's like last fight and Genji's not around, or he, let's say Genji doesn't have blade, right? So we're forced to use nano and Genji doesn't have blade. Now who's the second priority after that? I'd probably go with like Reinhardt after that, right? So we go
Hmm.
Genji with blade first priority, Reinhardt second priority, and maybe like Zarya, whose high energy is third priority, right? So we
Right.
just go through that real quick in our head. Sometimes it's not as obvious if we don't have a big combo like the nano blade, so it always helps to go through that ahead of time. Second thing I'm looking at is like what composition are we running, because that'll dictate kind of our pacing of our team. How fast are we playing? How far away from them are we playing? So we can look through this real quick. Just do a quick scan. Reinhardt, Zarya are brawl characters. They want to play close and fast. Torb
Hmm.
is a semi brawl, semi spam. Right, he's kind of mixed in there. Genji can do anything pretty much, so he can act in the brawl as well. And then Ana is brawl. Mercy's the only one here who doesn't really necessarily fit in, but for the most part, our comp is like a brawlish comp, right? So that means that our comp is going to look to play fast. Our comp is going to look to play close, especially in comparison to the other team. Whereas if I look at the other team, I go, okay, Torb is semi spam, Sigma is spam, Mercy is spam, Soldier is spam, right? So they're
Hmm.
already running a lot more spam than us. So if we allow them to play slow and we allow them to play far away from us, we're going to end up losing the game because we're taking the pacing wrong. And I actually if you give me a second here, I can get you a chart in Discord just so you can take a look at that for kind of how different compositions work.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah, so Brawl plays fast and close, Spam plays far and slow, Dive is a little bit of a mix of them. Far, you play far, then you dive in close. You play fast and slow at different times. It's a little bit of the more complicated one. But any composition that has been in the game has been one of these four compositions. Hybrid is going to be a mix of any of these, right? Where it's not really anything in particular. And
Hmm.
hybrid comps don't necessarily have a kind of main objective besides everyone is looking to do their own thing. You're looking for picks, you're looking for solo frags, and then you can push and integrate aggressive off of those, right? But
Hmm.
all the other comps will have different will have different speeds and distances that you're playing, especially when you're comparing brawl to spam, which is the case in this game. We're comparing their spam comp to our brawl comp.
Right.
Okay, so we can keep playing here.
I'll make quick work of them.
This is interesting. Are you aware of the Ana ult charge nade tech? Is this what you're going for here?
I'm not looking for like a out of the spawn door one. I'm just waiting for them to show up in the choke, and then just gonna chuck a grenade.
Yeah, what I'm interested in is that you kind of have it almost perfectly lined up here. Are you aware that your ult charge had like a where you're scoped in, like how to line that up correctly?
Oh yeah. Well, yes, yeah. So what I do is I use my portrait, the health bar, and the health bar I usually points at what it'll hit, right?
No, okay. So it's just real quick. Just we'll get back into the game soon enough. This is just a very fast one. It just looked as if you're going for this, so I just was wondering.
Never
Um,
stop
when
fighting
you're on
for what
Ana,
you
this is just a
believe
really
in.
quick tip to hit longer distance nades. Is what you're gonna do is this only works if you're scoped in. You can't be unscoped. You have to scope in, and you take your the Q at the very bottom of your ult meter, right? And you line it up with an enemy, and you press E, and that
This
nade will
will only
always
hurt
hit
for a
them,
minute.
right? From any range, any height.
Uh,
Right?
okay, so what I was doing like almost was right, but
Mhm.
it's just a little bit off. I
Yeah,
see.
and
That's great.
it's also a little bit easier because it's not on the left hand side of your
Right, I
screen.
don't have to like eye it. I love that. That's great. Okay.
Oh, we ended up missing that one, but yeah, it's around that. It's around the queue. Um, Sometimes it gets a little bit iffy with distances, but it's gonna be the general area of them. Whereas we can line this up right on the person, toss it in there. Ah, it's still like reaching right at the door,
It's
but
because he was like
yeah,
moving away, I guess. Yeah,
yeah,
that's great. Okay. I was doing it a little bit wrong. I like it. All right.
yeah. But it looked like you're going. You had your crosshair in the like a decent place for it, so that's why I was mentioning it in the first place. Went back to Blizzard World.
Welcome to Blizzard World. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Attackers incoming. I make quick work of them. Defend objective A.
Protect my turret! I worked hard on that!
أنا هاخد بالي منك.
Need healing!
By the
Heal up.
time I like turned around, they
Mhm.
had so well, I'm just gonna shut up. Yeah.
No, go ahead. What are you saying?
They had so much damage coming through, and like by the time like I mean, like you can see, like I
Mhm,
turned around to heal the Torb, and by the time I turned back around, Ryan's practically dead.
mhm. Which
You
is
know, like
just yeah, you can see that's kind of a testament to the damage difference between their long range damage and our long range damage is they're just
yeah,
gonna have a lot more shield break, a lot more spam damage. So it's a good decision to not, we probably don't want to run into them here or up here. We want them to have to walk through, but um we should be engaging pretty much like once they reach this little choke area here, we probably want to run into them as a team, right? If
okay.
we're not playing that aggression, then we're just gonna struggle a lot.
It's just a scratch. You'll be fine.
And we can even look to open up, with our aggression by just looking for big nades and whatnot.
أنا هاخد بالي منك.
Okay, so biggest thing so far that we're lacking in is aggressive usage of our nade.
Hmm.
So just keep in mind that your abilities are the biggest tools in your kit, right? You will be able to do the most and carry the most if you're effectively landing sleeps on ultimates and especially big anti nades. Because if you can land like a 6-man anti nade, that is more value then and you're more likely to win that fight unless they use like a beat or something like that. You're more likely to
Hmm.
win that fight than if you just land a nano, right? So be looking to actively use your nade for this anti purposes, and you'll find that you're not only one not allowing them to heal, but this also creates space in the sense of sometimes the best defense is a good offense, right? So
Hmm.
I'll explain that further. Is your team will be taking less damage if you land a nade because when you land a nade, that pressures them to back up. It pressures them to stop shooting. It pressures them to, because they can't heal, right? They're and it's also like for all the squishy targets, that's a third of their health. So landing a big anti nade not only is very good in its ability to, not allow them to heal, but it's also going to be able to create some space for your team. So you might not even be needing to use these nades for the burst healing on your tanks if you're landing an effective anti nade. So of
Right.
course. There are going to be situations where you need to burst heal your tanks where you are going to use it, but just be looking to actively use it your nade for the anti purposes, and you might see a lot more value in it.
Okay.
Okay, so this is a kind of mini tiny bit, same as we were talking about before with the nade lineup, but um, this isn't, of course, in any means going to boost you up an entire rank or anything like that. But it's just a good habit to get out of is spam jumping. So you holding down your space bar, as we're about to see in a second, you go
I
jump,
know.
jump, jump, jump,
It's so
jump,
bad. I
right?
know.
Yep, and
I know why it's bad. It's such a bad habit. Yeah,
mhm,
I know.
yep.
I know.
A headshot's easier, exactly.
Yeah.
So basically, I guess if you really need to try to force it out of yourself, you can try bounding it, but that's rebinding it, but that's kind of on the extreme end of it. You can also just focus on it as you play. That's gonna be the big way to um fix a lot of these things. Is you want to make sure that you're thinking about it as you play. Don't autopilot. Think about
Mhm.
what you're trying to improve on. Oh,
Mhm.
sorry, I burped there. Think about what you're trying to improve on, and then that way you will be improving on it rather than just autopiloting through your gameplay.
Right.
Heal up.
Heroes never
Go.
die.
I
Okay,
keep you
what's our
healed.
Genji at? Genji is at 91, so we can probably nano him early here. Even when we see that our Genji's at 90, right? We nano him, he dashes through pretty much like two people, and he has his blade. So don't be afraid to go for
You're powered
nanos on our
up. Get
Genjis
in there.
early. Do you know if this is intentional on Saria or if
Mhm.
we are aiming for Genji?
No, that
You're
was meant
powered
for the
up.
Genji. I
Get in there.
remember, like, while we were in the game, I was like, "Ah."
Hmm? Um,
He called it out, and I was like, "I got it for you, go." And I ended up just going to the Zarya instead.
mhm. Yep. So, first off, make sure that you're either like you have kind of two options here. Okay, you can either make sure you're watching the Zarya and move to the side so that she's no longer in front of the Genji, or we can also nano him earlier here when he's not in front of the Zarya, right? Because if we
Heal up.
see it
Heroes
here,
never
Go.
die.
right?
I
We
keep
have
you
perfect
healed.
line of sight on the Genji, right? We see it here,
Yeah.
we have perfect line of sight on the Genji, right? We still have line of sight on the Genji here. We have line of sight on them, like he's not right next to the Zarya, so we can do it earlier here. We can once he gets in front of the
You're
Zarya, we can
powered
wait
up. Get
until
in there.
Zarya moves out of the way, right? We
Mhm.
can move to the side of her. But then the other thing here is, have you edited your Nanoboost sensitivity at all?
I think it's pretty much standard, right? The sensitivity is standard right now for
Hmm.
Ana, I believe.
Okay, so I would probably recommend lowering that to around 50. Um, are you aware of what Nanoboost sensitivity does?
That's like it like is basically like how easily it changes targets when you're like looking at people, right?
Yeah, so what it is the lower down to 10 you go, the more accurate to where your crosshair is. Um where your nano's going to go. You want a little bit of leniency for this so that you of course can like hit a Genji while he's dashing through the air. You can hit some fast nanos. You want it to not be a skill shot where you have to hit them perfectly,
Right,
but
right.
you also don't want it to be what when people are crowded up, you don't want it to be inaccurate. So I recommend lowering that to around 50, and then that will make it slightly more accurate because it'll be more towards where you're aiming. But in this
Okay.
case, you can see obviously we're aiming on top of this area, so um,
Yeah.
that will help you in some other cases. But in this case, this is just because we're not paying attention to where our team is, like positioning. Right? We always
Right.
want to make sure that both with our nanos and our nades that we're not just aware of where enemies are, but we're aware of where our team's at, so that they're not jumping in front of nades or nanos.
My ultimate is almost ready. I have found the enemy. Face me.
I will keep you healed.
I can't hold forever. Enemy turret destroyed. Get me.
Огонь по готовности. Leading with it.
Yeah. So far, haven't been looking for anti nades.
Think
Missed our
more than
nano on
that.
accident.
Objective lost.
See what happens here. So
Stop the
would you
payload.
be interested at all in learning how to ult track? Or if you do, I don't want to be presumptuous there. Do you know how to ult track first?
Um I I mean I do I wouldn't say that I'm great at it, but I try to every game I try to like pick one person on the enemy team and I try and like keep track of just that one person. I know I should be able to keep track of like 4 or 5 at a time or whatever, but like usually I try and like focus on one person and keeping
Yeah.
track of their ult.
Yeah, that's so basically like of course I don't want to make it sound easy because a lot of the time it isn't, but I can simplify it to where it does become semi simple to where like even me as a DPS player who like I have a lot of things to keep track of and think through. um, I can just not even be really thinking much about it during the fight, but then still be able to very kind of efficiently ult track after the fight's done. Um, so I can walk you through kind of that because it is a fairly simple process to be able to do full team ult tracking.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Right. So, first off, we're going to use team two on the enemy team on the top right as an example for tab, as currently we don't have I don't have access to tab. So what you're gonna do after every single fight, whether or not you won the fight or lost the fight. Now, of course, you might forget this, but the more of a rhythm you get into with it, the more you'll remember. So just try to make it a habit to get into. So after every single fight, we won it, we lost it, we're pressing tab. Okay,
Hmm.
tab is gonna give us a ton of information about ults on our team. And then we'll be able to use it as a visual indication for the ults that they have on their teams. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go left to right, and we're gonna go, okay, last fight, I saw or heard that they used a Torbolt, they Sigflux, they Valked. Okay, so we know that right off the bat, they just used these three, therefore they will not have it for this upcoming fight. Okay.
Right.
Also, this just in case you haven't noticed, this isn't gonna be accurate to what they currently have. Um, Okay, we also noticed that they had a Bastion before, and now they swapped to Soldier, so that's a fresh ultimate. They just reset it, therefore they don't have four ults. These four ults.
Okay.
Um, Now we weren't sure maybe that we were dead or we weren't paying attention or we didn't hear or see it right, and we ask we can ask our team, did they use Nano or Grav? And they say yeah, they used Grav that fight. So now through process of elimination, we have eliminated five possibilities, and we haven't heard anybody out of six people say that they use a nano. We didn't hear nano. We didn't see nano, right? So most likely they will have nano for this fight. So ult
Okay.
tracking is at the bare minimum. This is the bare minimum ult tracking, and we can in a second I'll explain how you can get more into depth of it. But at the bare minimum, ult tracking is essentially just saying they don't have this, they do have this, right?
Hmm.
So by saying what they don't have, we can get into what they do have. Um, and so ways to make this easier for yourself is to even in the middle of fights, just call it out to yourself or even out loud to your team. Just say they use Torb ult, right? They use Grav, right? And if we
Hmm.
say that out loud, then that's going to allow us to remember it better because like we're kind of verbally acknowledging that it happened. Therefore, we will remember after the fight's done that that did happen.
Okay.
Now you can get a little bit more specific with these, and that's just going to come with time and as you get better at it. Like for example, if they used their ult very early in the fight, right? They used it at the very start of the fight, and it was a long fight, right? It was like a 30-minute, or not 30 minutes, sorry, 30-second or 40-second fight, right? It was a pretty
Hmm.
long fight. They might be decently along it to where they might even be close to having another one, or they might even have another one, right? So
Right.
how early did they use it in the fight? How late did they use it in the fight? How much were they doing in the fight, right? Maybe the Zarya was full energy and she stayed alive, and we saw her kill four things in the kill feed, and she's on fire. She's gonna be high on like close to her ultimate, right? But
Right.
if Zarya wasn't full energy, right, she had zero energy. She died at the very beginning of the fight. Now Zarya is probably not going to be anywhere close to her ult because we know that she didn't do much, right? So we can
Right.
there's a lot of different things that we can go off for ult tracking, and those are gonna come with time and practice at it. But just for the bare minimum, and as you begin, try just going off of what did I hear and see, and then you can ask your team what they heard and saw as well.
Okay.
Okay, so and then what we can do with that, right, is now we can go and start applying that because it's not just helpful to like it doesn't do anything if we just know they have these ultimates if we're not doing anything to stop it, right? What's the point of knowing them if we're not actively doing anything to prevent them, right?
Sure.
So whenever ult tracking, we should be also thinking of a counterplay to at least some of the bigger combos or whatnot. So um on their team, they don't necessarily have any big ones. I'd probably say something like, okay, in this next fight, they have Torvald, they have, Flux, Valk, Soldier. Valk, you never need to really worry about. Um, Soldier ult, really not much you can worry about besides just, what we can do is just watch for, because, like high ground, for example, because that's probably going to be where he's coming from. I would imagine the soldier's going to try to run up on high ground and ult from the side or behind you guys. So we watch for our flanks. With Sig Flux, we can maybe say, hey, Zarya, save bubbles for Flux, right? That way we have the extra protection for it. We might
Mhm.
not want to all be grouped up, so we can say, hey guys, like stay spread out, right? Because if we're all spread out, we can't get all caught in it, and therefore we
Right.
can pocket the people who are caught in it. Um, where you can really see it very easily applicable is when we're talking about ults like such as Grav or Blade. Okay? Let's say, for example, hypothetically, the enemy team has a Zarya Hanzo Genji Ana, right? So they have Grav Dragon and they have Nano Blade.
Mhm.
And on your team, you have you as Ana and you have a Zenyatta. So you have one trance. So you are left with the task of they have 4 ults. How do we counter both of them at the same time? Okay, so we can think that through to ourselves. There are actually a ton of ults in the game that can counter a Nano Blade that people don't typically think about, especially at the lower ranks. So an example of this is most tank ults can counter a Nano Blade. So think about Grav, right? You grab a Genji, you you use one ultimate to stop 2 ultimates, and you pretty
Mhm.
much get the kill. So that's a very high value grab. And that stops him in his tracks, right? He can't do anything. At the very minimum, he can't move for that entire duration. Isn't very unlikely to get picks with it. Um,
Yeah.
so grab is a good counter. Shatter can be a good counter. Whole hog, you whole hog the Genji away. You can flux them, right? You
Mhm.
can use a high noon to stop him. You can use a Junkrat tire to one shot him, right? There's
Right.
a lot of different abilities that you can use to counter a Genji, but there's not a whole lot that can counter a Grab Dragon. A Grab Dragon is a very powerful ult combo, and it's very easy to pull off.
Mhm.
Can you really effectively grab or shatter a grab dragon? Right? Can you stop them by shattering or grabbing?
Oh, you're asking me if you actually can. Can you stop a Grav Dragon by I mean, if you get I guess if you get lucky with Reinhardt and you shatter before the arrow comes out, you
Hmm.
might be able to, but the likelihood of that I mean, Hanzo's probably going to be somewhere where you can't just shatter him
Hmm.
anyway.
Yep. And does grabbing stop the Hanzo from firing the arrow?
No,
Does
no.
fluxing stop it?
No.
Does whole hog? I guess whole hog can, right?
Could.
All of these can hypothetically, right? They can, but it's not nearly as cut and dry as this stops the Genji in his tracks. Whereas Hanzo can get away with his dragon without putting himself in a dangerous position. So what we
Right.
can do is just say to our team, "Hey, Zenyatta, don't trance the blade, trance the grab dragon, right? And then we say, Zarya, you grab the blade, right? And then now we've
Mhm.
come up with a plan in our head for their ultimates to where we have stopped both of them, even though really, if we hadn't said anything at all, our Zenyatta just trances for the first thing that happens, and then we died in the next combo, right? So,
Right.
um, ult tracking really shines when we start to think about that type of stuff. Is um, we can do a lot to counter certain ultimates, right? Reinhardt can
Mhm.
block Shatter a lot easier. Diva can eat any ultimate that's edible a lot easier if we're just calling it out for our team. So we've been talking about this for a while. We can go ahead and get back into the gameplay here.
I will keep you here. This is going to hurt.
Fire at will.
Okay. Whenever we know that we have a grab, attempt to save nade for when we're going for the grab, right? Because us chucking in nade and getting 2 people now, of course, there's no guarantee. We never know how many people they get in a graph, but it's just a little bit more riskier than if we know that they're all getting grabbed, right? Or we know that we have a grab, they're all going to be clumped up. We chuck nade into that, and then maybe that's might be a little bit more effective, because they're clumped up, not as easy for them to block it, and we're going to get a little bit more value out of it. So whenever we have a grab, be looking to use our nade for that value. Give me a second. I'm gonna go close my door.
Sure.
Okay, I am back.
I have your back. My shots find them.
Greetings. Shots
Untitled Chapter.
Okay, so we have we have Nano up. Okay, but the predicament is we do not have Blade. So we probably go from the fact that they have 3 ultimates here, we can't really afford to hold on to it, right? Because we only have 2 ults if we don't. So here in this case, we're probably gonna want to use it on our Reinhardt, right? Give him some survivability through their ults, give him up, and then hopefully we can just charge up another one before our or like kind of in the time frame that Genji gets his next one. We just want to be using it earlier rather than later.
Okay.
Yeah, we just want to be using it earlier so that we're not letting Genji get 40% closer and then us still being behind. So we want to start the recharging process here. Okay, so um first off, right? Same. Let's see. The things that we called that we could use to counter them. So saving bubbles and staying spread out. First off, we didn't stay spread out as we saw. We were all clumped up even right here, and we. Sorry, I have some siblings in the background. We're all staying clumped up here, and we saw that they caught 4 of us because of that. Let's see. Did we use bubbles at all? Yeah, yes, we do use both bubbles before it happened. So, in this case, right, those 2 simple just call outs of guys stay spread out, you save bubbles, probably saves a lot of damage here, and probably is gonna mean the difference between us winning and losing this fight. Okay, so good wall nade here. That's a really good game sense with that. Right, a lot of on us are gonna attempt to do that once they hit the ground and are already dead. Um,
Mhm.
good like fast thinking there. Okay. After we land that nade, don't just kind of sit there, look to be healing your teammates. If you need to be quickly identifying here, is this fight still winnable? Because if it is still winnable, we probably want to pop Nano. But here we kind of throw the nade and then we just like kind of stare, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
I did kind of just sit there and wait for it to happen.
Yep. All right. So coming in next fight, Genji's still only 20. This is where it gets into like rough territory because now by the time we use Nano, Genji's gonna be like 40, and then now we're just out of sync for the whole game.
Mhm.
Um, so here, what we can do is probably hold on to it. And why would you say, or why would I have that kind of thinking here? Can you maybe try to explain that?
Well, like you said, just so that we can get our ultimate, so that we can get our ultimates back in sync together,
Mm,
and we're not falling uh,
yep,
out of pace
that's
with each other.
that's one of them. There's another big main one that I'm looking at because the sync problem. I'd probably, if this other thing wasn't a factor, I would probably say that we go for the Nano anyways. But there's one other thing we need to be looking at.
Um,
Alright.
well, if we're talking about what we were just talking about, then it would be that like by the time Genji gets his blade, Zarya's gonna have her grab, and she can just grab him.
Mm. This is just going along with the ult tracking thing that we're talking about. If we're ult tracking and we're seeing on the enemy team, the only ultimate that they're gonna have for a while is Valk because they just popped pretty much every single ult there, right? They use Torb,
Hmm.
Flux, Visor, right? So they don't have anything. If we're looking at our comp, right, we have Valk, right, which is basically countering their Valk, but then we also have the Shatter, right? So we actually have a 2 versus 1 ultimate advantage here, which means that we might not even need Nano at all, right? So in my head right now, I'm thinking as the Ana player, I'm going, okay, we have 3 ults compared to their 1 ult. I probably won't need the third ult, right? I'm only gonna use Nano if we're looking like we're going to lose the fight if I don't use Nano, right?
Hmm.
So Nano here is becoming last case scenario because of the fact that they don't have anything else to really. We don't need Nano because they don't have ults to kind of contest it, right? And then we also open up
Right.
this fight with a um, pick, so that's also very good.
Never bow. You're powered up. Get in there.
Right, so open up the fight with a pick. We are nanoing by the time we get to 3 people. So now we're moving on us on top of the ult tracking thing, which of course we didn't do that in this game because we just talked about this. So that might not be as obvious here. But there's another problem with this nano in the fact that we use it after we've already won this fight. Um, and how you can tell whether or not you've won or lost a fight Now this isn't, of course, there's never 100% guarantee on anything, right? This could very easily have, flipped around. The soldier gets 6 picks and he wins the fight, right? But
Mhm.
the majority of the time, there's a rough estimate here that you can do is look at kill feed and go, okay, we are up 1 to 2 people. That is an advantage, right? We didn't win the fight yet, but we want to be pushing aggressively. We want to be capitalizing on that advantage. When they have less people alive, they have less people to punish us. So we want to just play fast. So on top of that, on top of that, we also, uh, sorry, rephrasing.
That's okay.
1 to 2 picks is an advantage. 2 to 3 picks is a team fight win. So we get 2 to 3 picks, and that means that we now don't want to use any ultimates, right? We don't want to use ultimates in a fight that we've already won.
Mhm.
We want to be playing super aggressive, looking to clean up these staggers. We want to be looking to push forward and take space. Now this also goes the opposite way too, right? If we're down 1 to 2 people, that is a disadvantage. We want to be playing more passive. We want to be looking for picks and maybe to regroup. It doesn't mean that we lost the fight yet, but once they start to get to 2 to 3 picks, right, that's where we're going. Okay, it's in a 3v6 scenario, we're very unlikely to win that. They have twice as
Yeah.
many people as us. So now that's getting to, we probably want to be grouping up. We want to be, or sorry, dying or getting out, right? We either want to be getting out if we can, or if we can't get out, we just go in cart and die. We don't want to be using ultimates in a fight that we lost, right? So, um, being able to read kill feed is going to be able to very heavily affect your decision making. Because in this fight, we end up using Nano after we had already won the fight, right?
If it's
Famous.
if it's any kind of like if it means anything, like I'm pretty certain that I did throw that was another missed
Mm,
nano that was meant to go to Zarya to prevent her from dying, which it didn't really
You're
help anyway
powered
because
up.
she died.
Get in there.
I guess not, maybe not.
mm.
I
Which
don't know, maybe
in
actually I
this
don't
case,
remember.
yeah, looks like we end up using this one. She's behind
Yeah,
a
that might have just been a
cover
bad
too.
nano.
Look, let's look at our crosshair real quick, right?
You're powered
Looks
up.
like we were
Get
looking
in
at
there.
Reinhardt pretty much the whole time.
Yeah, yeah.
Heroes never die.
So we can continue here.
You're powered up. Get in there. The pain is coming.
This is not the end.
Enemy turret ahead. You're
Enemy
covered.
turrets down.
And real. Oh, never mind.
Helden sterben nicht.
Here it comes.
Barrier won't hold forever.
I have your back.
Come out and face me.
Get back in the fight. Огонь по готовности.
all right. So, um. Okay, so let's go over. We're just gonna leave this game, and we're gonna go over some Ana positioning. So, real quick, we'll do this. So there is general positioning, and you seem to be adhering to this pretty well. Is that good positioning is the usage of cover, bad positioning is the absence of cover. You seem to have that pretty well down from your time in Masters. So we're not going to touch on that, but there is on a specific positioning to where you're going to want to position a little bit differently because you are playing Ana, and this also applies slightly to other supports too. But Ana is pretty unique in this positioning. So first off, you're checking off 3 boxes here. You're looking to check off them in your head every time that you're positioned, and you're trying to get as many of those boxes checked as possible. The first box that you're trying to check is, can I see my team? Right. Of course, this is an easy one. You seem to be doing pretty good on this. It's just as simple as, am I out of line of sight of them? And if I'm out of line of sight of them, I'm not gonna be able to heal them. So we
Mhm.
want to make sure that if they're pushing super far in, right? If they're looking like they're about to go around that corner, we need to make sure that we're moving to a position to where we can see them when they go around that corner, right? Because
Mhm.
if we're just sitting back in a normal spot, acting like we're gonna be able to see them the whole time, even if they do push forward, then we're not gonna be able to heal them when they do push in. This is gonna apply to dives especially because they very, very fast are going to be going from point A to point B. And if we're
Mhm.
positioned back here, right, and yes, we can heal them from here, but we're not going to be able to heal them in a second when they dive on point, right? So we need to always be looking to where they're going to be. Second check mark that we're looking for is can the enemy team see us? Most of the time, we're going to want this to be a no. We don't want them to be able to see us because of the fact that on Ana, we don't have a ton of um, damage or burst damage or really much reason to let them see us. Now we
Mhm.
can. This of course isn't always gonna be a bad thing, but this especially applies depending on the comp that they're running. So for example, snipers, right? Not gonna be a big reason to let to be in a line of sight of the
Turret
snipers, right?
neutralized.
Or if they have high burst damage. So yes, if our team's standing here,
Being
right?
enough.
Yes, we can see our team and we can heal our team from here, but the enemy team can also see us, which means that we're
Mhm.
taking a ton of spam damage. We're letting them snipe us, right? If they don't have anything, if they don't have any long range damage at all, this doesn't really matter nearly as much. And being here can actually be beneficial for us because we can, maybe shoot some people who are low more efficiently. But
Mhm.
most of the time, they're gonna have some form of long range damage, so we might just be better off by just going into the side and not letting them see us. But again,
Mhm.
this is something that you seem to be pretty decent on. This third one is the one that I want you to be thinking about most of all. Is the third checkbox that you're looking to check off is can I land nades and sleeps effectively from where I'm standing? Um, if we're looking to sit here the whole time, right, and spam from this angle, or even spam like do land nades from the angle where we can't see them, right? Either or aren't great need positions because or sleep positions because we're gonna have our there are five members of our
Target
team in front of our face,
neutralized.
which they block our nades. We're gonna have
Mhm.
enemy shields, enemy tanks in the front who block nades and they block sleeps, right? And then on top of that, like we discussed before, we're going to be taking a lot of damage from here. So when we're looking for nades and sleeps, we want to be looking to get around those all those different things, right? We want to get around their team. We want to get around the enemy team. So, easy thing to do here is go for off angles. So we can do this pretty much if we just stand here. Now this is perfect positioning for this if this is an
Target
imaginary point,
neutralized.
because if we can see our team from here, we can see the enemy team, and if we see at any point that no one's critical, no one's about to die, the team fight hasn't fully started yet, we can
Mhm.
take 1, 2, 3 seconds, right, to get above them and chuck in a nade, which hits pretty much the whole team if they're all grouped up here. We can chuck in a sleep, and
Mhm.
that is going to be a big, big factor to winning the fight, right?
You're
We're
covered.
getting in. We already discussed how big Nate is. Um, now the reason why this is such a good play is because we're in a safe position, right? We only took a 3 second gap away from our team, right? It's very unlikely that in that 3 seconds, as long as we're not doing this in the middle of the fight, that our team's gonna
Turret
die
down.
in that time, right? And we still have access to be able to see our team. We can drop to them if we need to, and
Mhm.
we're in a very safe position because we're on the high ground here, and we can very easily just back to our team if we start getting pushed. So another similar one would be another similar off angle would be if we just went through here, right? It took us a couple
Rocket off.
seconds, right, and we're already back. Now don't confuse off angles with flanks because flanks are definitely not ones you want to be going for a lot on Ana.
Mhm.
Um, probably almost never on Ana,
Target down.
unless you're like ML7 and you can get away with it. But um, a flank is the difference between a flank and this off angle is a flank where we go around here and we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, we're in position. In that time, our team dies, right? Because we're not there to heal them. And we're also in a very, very risky position because all they have to do is just turn around and shoot us, right? We're not gonna be able to get
Mhm.
away. So this is flanks not a good option here because of the fact that flanks take long periods of time to do, and they also are very risky. Whereas off angles are very short, and it's just you peeking at different angles so that you can bypass their shields and bypass your team. Now, you're not always going to get a good off angle, so sometimes the other things you can do is just look to get around your team by making sure they're not standing in your way, right? We can be in the same position and just make sure we're getting around their team by looking to get it past them. We can wait till they drop their shields. We can, just time it perfectly. But we can also do something like this where we just are standing on the side here and we run into them real quick, right? It's pretty fast. We have our tanks there to back us up if we need to. But we're running past our whole team and past their shields real quick just to toss it in, and then we're backing up, right? So
Okay.
you can go for that type of stuff too. The big thing is that we just want to be looking for nades and sleeps. Sleeps as a less important one, um, because most of the times the only value sleeps are going to get, the only big value sleeps are going to get is on, ulting targets, but
Hmm.
and that's not really something that you can position for per se. But nades is definitely the one where you can put yourself in a better position to where you can land anti nades much more effectively. Um,
Sure.
so getting back into Blizzard World.
Welcome to Blizzard World.
When
Ready for
when
battle.
we go back to that fight that we were just at, can you show me an example of like where I should have been in that particular fight to like
Yeah.
get off get
So
a better off angle?
first off, high ground is going to be a very very big one. High ground um on top of you getting a good angle to where you can land nades and sleeps from, a lot of the time, what high ground's also going to do for you is it's going to allow you to have a lot more survivability, and the fact that boo people can see, like I can see people when I want to. Okay, they start shooting at us. I get ducked to the right here, or all I have to do as well is just back up, right? And then now I'm away from the ledge. People that down there can't see me. So a lot of the time, high grounds, as long as they're next to the fight, will be very, very good options. Now, I do think that they come up and contest the high grounds, which you can always drop down if you need to, but preferably here, you guys should be taking control of high grounds. You should have you, Ash, Mercy, and maybe even Genji too up on the high grounds. And I think Urian and Zarya could also be up there. And then if they go to cart, Urian and Zarya just drop the cart, right? Um,
Hmm.
so us taking control of high ground would be a very good position to where, like, if they come high ground, right? There's not really an off angle that we can take per se, but what we can do very easily is just, they can't shield this whole area, so what we can just do is just wait until the tanks walk forward and then just, nade behind them because they do have to walk sideways here.
Hmm.
Um, so we can do that if they go that way. If they come left here, we can just nade them very easily from high ground, right? Because when we can look down on them, that very easily bypasses shields because to block us, they have to look up, which allows our team who's on the low ground to shoot at their feet, right? So it's gonna be very difficult for them to shield us all the time when we're on high ground, especially if we're just peeking out for like 2 seconds, right, where they might not
Right.
be able to react in time. Um, Now, if we're not, let's say we don't we're not able to take this high ground in time. Um, like us backing off to this high ground might be okay if they're below us here. And then the other one we can take is this right side room where if we're we're the whole fight's progressing here and down this alleyway. We
Hmm.
just take this right side angle. There's probably not going to be a shield there. We can just walk forward a couple seconds, right? Look for when people are all grouped up, toss the nade, and then back out to where we can see our team. Okay, so you're gonna be able to find those in
Your
most
cover.
scenarios.
Yeah.
Maybe in like a scenario like this, right, where our team's holding here. That's not really a place where the positioning is gonna matter too much because since it's such an open area and this isn't a really great place to be holding in the first place for our team. There's maybe not as much of a need to get there's maybe not as much of a good position, but we something to consider here is that we should probably be always looking to reposition in the best place possible after fights. So we should be looking to rotate up to the high ground. Probably most of all here is just look to get in that better positioning at
Heavy
before the
stabbing.
fight starts or in
Here
between
it
fights.
comes.
Barrier won't hold forever.
I have your back.
Come out and face me.
Okay, so you do hit shots very, very well. You don't have trouble with your scoping either, knowing when to use each type of scope. So those are two areas where I probably wouldn't say that you need much work in mechanically with your aim, or when it comes to regular shots. And then also knowing when to scope. Those are two areas that you are managing very well. Your positioning also seems to be managed decently well when it comes to just standing next to cover. So so far it's looking like the main issues are gonna come down to your game sense and your ability to make decisions and your decision making.
Okay.
So those are gonna be the big ones that we're gone over, as well as all the other factual information stuff that we've gone over with introducing ult tracking, planning against those ultimates, all the different tips and texts that we've gone over.
Okay.
Get back in the fight.
Валіном вогонь по готовності.
Okay, like just notice how easy it is for that nade to be blocked when we're just chucking it in, right? It's a lot easier for nades to be blocked by shields, eaten, um, and or even just dodged straight up if we're chucking them in from long distances, just because that's just naturally how it works, right? He's
Yeah.
okay, so our team ends up getting grabbed.
I
Good.
it's really interesting that well, it's not interesting because I guess it's like pretty obvious to you, but like,
Mhm,
that this is like an issue that I've had for a pretty long time is like I always throw nades at the enemy and they always end up hitting my own team,
mhm.
like
Yep.
always, and I get so frustrated, and I guess it's just because I'm not throwing them from the right position.
Yep, and even if we do, like I said, there's not always gonna be those off angles that you can take, and in those cases, we just need to make sure that we're aware of where our whole team's positioned, in the same way that we need to make sure that they're not jumping in front of our Genji when we're trying to land a Nano Blade. We can, if our whole team is positioned here, we just move to the right a little bit, and now we might have a better angle to toss our nade because no one's standing there. So we just need to pay attention to where our team's standing and move to the side, opposite of them. And it's kind of sometimes it can get, of course, it's gonna happen where they end up walking into it. That's inevitable, but you can
Mhm.
cut out a lot of that just by being smart about it with where you're putting yourself.
Okay.
Okay, so we've identified we're trying to back up here. Once we see that Zarya has a lock on us, now it's time to just die because we're not going to be able to get out of that situation. So, um, probably let up on the crouch spamming, jumping around, because the harder we're making on her, the more time that we're
Has reached the
staggering
sector.
ourselves by.
Right.
Which means that if we're the only ones spawning here, and we have one, two, three, four teammates over here, and then I think we have one other teammate dead, right? Now
Mhm.
while our team is all up here fighting, we're gonna be still walking back from spawn. So us staggering ourselves isolates us from our team.
Mhm.
The
And
adults
that's
are talking.
exactly what happens. We lose this next fight because it
I've
took
seen
me,
worse.
you know.
You're going to live.
Well, I guess it's not. I was there, but
Mhm.
Take cover. Enemy turrets down.
Go.
Something
I'll
else to
keep
keep
you
in
here.
mind is when you're looking for nades, a lot of the time look to wait out abilities and whatnot. So we can wait for shields to break, we can wait for them to use their bubbles, we can wait for them to use their sig grasp, right? And then if all those things are gone, or at least some of them, right, most of them, then that means that we might be able to get away with a nade a lot easier than if we're just chucking it in while they still have all those abilities available. So keep an eye on what tanking abilities, especially that they have available, so that we might be able to get away with those long range chucks a lot more
Mhm.
efficiently.
I could use some
would
assistance.
you would you say that
Mm.
that instance where that Reinhardt just died? Do you think I should have nanoed him there?
Um, so whenever you have a Ryan, like right where we have a Nano Blade online, we have a Reinhardt. You need to weigh to yourself, which is going to be a more effective at winning the fight, keeping a Reinhardt alive or using a Nano Blade. Now they don't have any defensive ultimates, right? Um, the most that they have is Flux, which again, like we discussed, isn't gonna be something that a lot of plats will think to use.
Mhm.
It definitely can happen, but it's not gonna be their first instinct a lot of the time. Um, they don't have any defensive ults, okay? We have a Nano Blade. On average, how many kills would you say that a Nano Blade gets usually?
Yeah, it's usually like two,
Yeah,
three.
usually like 2 or 3, yeah. That I'd say that's pretty accurate, right? I'd say but probably minimum 2 usually. If he gets rolled, then it's 0 or 1. But if he gets off a decent blade, that's 2 picks. If we nano our Reinhardt and keep him alive, he stays alive, but a lot of the time he's not gonna get much done with it.
Mm.
At maximum, he gets maybe 1 pick off of it, especially we have to, like, think about like how far away is he from them, right?
Yeah,
Um,
he's like right in everybody's line of sight, so they're pumping damage into him as he's nanoed.
right. So um, you always have to kind of identify which we're going to get more value out of. And in this case, I think we probably would get more value out of a Nano Blade without a Reinhardt than we'd get out of just nanoing a Reinhardt to stay alive. But that's all. There's never going to be or very rarely in Overwatch are there going to be set rules that apply to 100% of every circumstance, because
Right.
it's very, very situationally based to where you're always making different decisions based off of different information that you have.
Sure.
I could use some assistance.
Okay, so here, probably just want to be doing one of two things. One, either we're going in very fast and using Blade now, or we're looking to back up and wait for a Reinhardt to get back. Because if we're doing anything else, we're right. If we're taking this just semi passively, where we're not really doing much, then and we're just like backing up super super slowly, then that means that they can just be aggressive and run into us, and they're gonna get extra picks.
Hmm.
No, they end up. They
You're
do.
powered
Okay, so
up.
yeah.
Get
So we
in
go for
there.
the blade. That's good.
Get back in the fight. I'm
Okay, so
fighting.
now in that fight, this is a classic example of an overulting. So we won that fight very very definitively because we used one, two, three, four ultimates, right? So on the enemy team, they used one visor and that's it. Now in the next fight, they are going to have Flux, Valk, and then they're going to be very, very close to a Nano and a Grab, right?
Hmm.
Whereas on our side, the only things that we're going to have are a Valk and a Shatter, and that's pretty much it, right? Nothing else is anywhere close. So
Right.
this is an issue, and this is also going to be an issue. Like if we, sometimes this will be even worse, to where we just used all that and they didn't use any ults, or they are even closer on ults. But more likely than not, we're going to end up doing very poorly in the next fight because of the we just wasted our ultimates. Um, so what we can do to stop that is communicate. So say, hey guys, I let's use Nanoblade this fight, right? And then that way we're calling out the combo that we want to use, and we're holding on to the grab and the grab and the what was the and the bob, right? We
Right.
can, if we think that we might need an extra one, we can say, okay, let use bob if you need to, but let's start off with Nanoblade, right? So first off, we're communicating what ults we want to be used so that we're not over ulting. But the second thing this does is it also allows us to combo ults a lot more effectively, as a lot of the time ults might not get off super well, right? Go very well, right? So let's say you have a grab dragon, for example, right? A lot of the time you're gonna, if they're not paying attention, that ends up going very poorly. Where the Hanzo launches off dragon before Zarya grabs, the Hanzo ends up dying early on, and Zarya grabs anyways.
Right.
So if we're not communicating it, then sometimes it goes very poorly. Whereas if we do say, "Hey guys, let's use Grab Dragon in this fight," one, that means that we're not using a ton of other ults, and the second thing that does is it means that you guys are more effectively comboing that, because now they're pressing tab and going, "Oh yeah, we do have Grab Dragon, let's do that." Okay, and now they're all on the same page. They're thinking about it. So this goes hand in hand with ult tracking, is ult planning, right? They kind of both go together in a team environment. Both of these are going to be happening in quick succession. So what you can do is, as a player, is just go through the basics of both of these, right? They have this, we have this. Let's try to counter their ults with like so and so and use our combos, right? And it all sounds like a lot, but you have 20 seconds to go through this, right? And as you get better at it, that it'll end up you'll end up getting faster at it, and it won't seem like as much of a um, burden once you get better at it. And
Mm.
you do have a lot of time in between fights to be going over this, because if you can even start this like when you know that you've pretty much won a fight, right? So even like, let's say we at the point where
Get back in
we
the
watch
fight.
kill feed and we go, okay, we got 2 picks, 3 picks, right? 4 picks, okay, we won the fight. Now we're starting the ult track. Let's count how much time we have until the next fight starts. 1, 2, 3, 4,
I'm Fire.
5, 6,
Relax.
7,
You're
8,
going to be okay.
9, 10, 14, 17,
I have your
20.
back.
Okay, so now we've hit 20 and we're kind of at the poke phase. Okay, 21.
Helden sterben nicht.
Okay, now ultimates are starting to be used. That's pretty much when the fight started. So we've had 22 seconds to go over all this different stuff, right? 22
Mhm.
seconds to reposition, 22 seconds to ult track, 23 seconds to ult plan. So it's a decent amount of time, right? And as you get better with it, you'll be able to work with it a lot easier. Just make sure that you're recognizing the end of the fight and we're starting fast. We're not delaying. Okay, okay, make sure we're aware of the, the cart here. Keep in mind you have an arc with your nade, right?
Mm.
Don't want to have stuff jumping in front of it.
You're going to be okay.
Heroes never die.
Okay, very good sleep. Good dodging of the ult there.
Get real.
Hey, don't take your attention away from the front line for too long here. She does end up being fairly safe, right? Um, she's being pocketed by Mercy if we pay attention here.
Mm.
So Mercy does have a beam on her, right? She gets the critical, but we very, very fast heal her up, right? We nade her, we heal her. She also gets a bubble, I'm pretty sure.
Get real.
Bubble, okay?
So,
Now, we are way too focused on the Ashe to where now we're taking way too long to turn around. And in that time, Zarya's, critical in the middle of their team. We can't stop her from being in the middle of the team, unfortunately. But we can be just paying attention to our front line more often. So make sure we're not taking too long away from them when we could, very easily be paying attention to them as well.
Огонь по готовности.
Die deep.
Okay, good nade. That's an example of an off angle right here that he took, whether knowing it or not. We should probably have been positioned probably in this positioning to start off, right? Is just be over here to where we can see most of our team, but then we can just go like bloop. Now we can see like their whole team very easily.
mm.
But in this positioning, unless they push us, which we have the option to go to spawn, we could probably our team can probably push them pretty easily. And this is also an angle that they might not expect us from. Um, in this angle, this is pretty much covers all the check boxes, and this is a good example of checking all of them. Is we can see our whole team, or at least the majority of them. They can't see us. We can just peek for half a second and get off our abilities and be very effective with that. And then once maybe when we don't have that nade, we can and then we have spare time, we can get back to maybe a more safe position since we don't have those abilities anymore.
Mhm.
But this is an example what whether you knew it or not, this is an example of a just taking an off angle to land that nade effectively, and then we got two people with that. So that's pretty decent. Okay, make sure when we're paying attention to how many fights we have left in the round, right? Once Cart has gotten to around this spot, this is now last fight territory to where if they win this fight, they win the round, right? We can't get regroup in time. So we in those cases, we need to be now more lenient with our nano usage and pretty much use it if we're detecting that we're losing. Right, so with our nade, we need to be
I
looking
should
for
have
the
just
nano.
paused, but
Yep, look for the nano as soon as we get that, but we don't end up getting it off, which is losing a little bit of stall time and value out of it.
Round one.
Right, so we didn't get it through as much as I would have hoped to, but we are up out of time here. I also apologize for all the times that my siblings ran in the room and started screaming, and I
you're good, man.
lost a little bit of focus.
It's
I'm
fine.
gonna end the recording here.